believe we should be focusing more on the run game and, getting 4 yards at a time and not just throwing a Hail Mary every single pass.
That's my frustration with the Republican Party.
This isn't Tecmo Super Bowl where you're playing, a video game, and so you can just throw a pass every single time, or you can, try to blitz every single time. This isn't a video game. You have to actually have strategy or strategery, as W would call it, strategery. But you got to be able to think about that.
So today I have with me a man that wears many hats. He's a new dad, a state senator. Heck, he's my state senator. And I might say he has set the bar pretty high for conservatism in the state Senate. He's the OKGOP chairman, grassroots sweetheart, and my good friend Nathan Dahm. Welcome to Real Talk with Rhonda.
Thank you for having me on. Always enjoy working with you, Rhonda. So I haven't done a whole lot of podcasts, actually. I've done a lot of interviews and different things, but I can't think back. I'm sure I've done one or two in my, 12 years in the Senate, but I just can't really think back to which one it was right now. So this is fun.
That's okay. This is only really my second one. So we'll cut our teeth together. So thank you so much for your willingness to meet with us and to have a candid conversation. I think we're going to cover today the state party dramatics, as well as your last year serving in the state Senate, because, of course, you've termed out, unfortunately. So it should be fun. So let's just jump right in.
Alrighty.
So let's start with fatherhood. It seems to really agree with you. So does married life seem to agree with you.
You did say we were going to cut our teeth together, which is what Sophia's doing right now.
Good.
So, yeah.
You said she's napping, right?
Yes.
So is it everything you hoped it would be?
She's wonderful. God has blessed us. Every child is a great gift, but God blessed us with a great baby. When we're out in public, she rarely, if ever, cries. She's always happy. I can't say she never cries because she's a baby. When she gets hungry, she can't speak yet, so she lets us know in the way she can, for sure. But yeah, she's right now at 9 months old and already has flown 25 times. So she's already traveled all over the place.
Well, that's because it's cheap for her to fly right now.
It's free. So yeah.
That's right.
And we have one of those car seats that actually we can carry on the plane. And if there's a free seat, we just put the car seat in there and she sits in that and stuff. And so she's been a great baby. My wife and I are so blessed. We're so thankful for her, especially with the difficulties that we had at the beginning. God's blessed us abundantly.
Yeah, I tell you've got a beautiful wife. She's very supportive.
Absolutely.
When you decided to run last year, you kind of jumped in at the last minute, and I'm very thankful that you did. Of course, I had nominated AJ as the chairman. In my time, I can tell you that was the most stable I'd seen the party in a long time.
Sure, there's been a lot of changes over the last few years, for sure.
I know, and the fact that when you come in and you take over a position, if nobody's there to help you walk through it and to figure out the waters, you were fortunate. You had our state executive director to kind of help you walk through some things and how things were happening. But, oftentimes, and I was fortunate, I had Bob Jack. Bob has been such an asset to me. And so it's always good to have somebody that's there and even to have some continuity as you transition into a new office, not office holder, but a new leadership role.
Absolutely. And I remember when I first got involved in the party, when you first got involved in the party a long time ago. I know what it's like to have passion and to think you're going to go in there and you're going to change everything and you're going to do it the right way, and throw out the quote unquote old guard or establishment or whatever you want to call them. But there is something to be said about having some historical knowledge and context and that continuity, even when it comes to the legislative side. And I know we're going to talk about some of that too, so I don't want to cross too much. But with term limits, it does cut both ways. I personally do support term limits. I think it's better overall. But you do lose that institutional knowledge with the members that get elected, and so they default to people that have that institutional knowledge, which is usually either the bureaucrats or the lobbyists.
Right.
And And so, because there is an importance to having institutional knowledge. So I was thankful to have Josh Kraft as our executive director to continue on with that continuity, to help get things rolling as I first came into the chairman role. Thankful for our new executive director that took over when Josh left to pursue other things with Stan. He's been great. I mean, he's been involved in the party for a long time.
Yeah, he has.
And it's disappointing when a lot of people will just say that years of involvement is a negative thing versus looking at what was involved in those years of involvement, because we have people that have been in the fight for the pro-life movement for decades. Well, just because they did it for 20 years doesn't mean that they're bad. Like, they were fighting for life. We have people that have been fighting for the Second Amendment. I mean, and pick any of these topics, and to just, think that somebody should be thrown out just because they've been in the fight for a long time. I mean, that's just unfortunate that there are some people that have that perception, looking at that they just look at that as a number that's all qualifying, quantifying, and that's kind of unfortunate that sometimes that does take place.
Well, and it seems now that even people that should be on our side, if we don't think like them, if you're not exactly thinking like them, then they're going to label you as as establishment or a rhino or whatever, and that's not the way the game is played. I mean, you and I, when we kind of got in it, I think you might have been in a little bit before me. I got
just
in about 08, and
I got in at 7, so just a little year before. Yeah.
So, and when we did, I can remember one of the things, I started the 912 Project. You were very active. When I really got to know you was when you ran against John Sullivan. And when I tell people that, they're like, he did what? I don't remember that. And I'm like, no, in 2010, Nathan ran against John Sullivan. And
an
for
incumbent.
Congress.
I took on an incumbent.
That's
yes.
exactly right. And I love that you've always been willing to get into the battles that seem monumental. But you get through and you get your name out there, and I'm very proud of you. You're my senator. I think you've done a phenomenal job in the Senate, but I also look up to you for the wisdom that you have with not only the legislature but the Constitution, and I've just always been a huge fan of yours.
Well, and I'm thankful for everything you've done, but for the people listening, you and I haven't always agreed on everything.
No, we don't.
And when going back to kind of what you were saying, where people label others as establishment, well, I know that's a scary word for for some people, but what does that mean? Or the term rhino. Rhino means an abbreviation for Republicans in name only.
Right.
Right. So do rhinos exist? Sure.
Sure.
Does the establishment exist? Sure. What does that mean? Well, it means different things to different people, but what it has come to become, right, or seems to be right now for a lot of people, is they will call you a rhino if you disagree with them.
Exactly.
And you and I have had our disagreements, and that's why I bring this up. And there's things that we've been on opposing sides on. That happens. I mean, that's life.
That's right.
I jokingly say that you're never going to agree with everyone in life. Even my wife and I don't agree on everything because I think she's the best and she thinks I'm the best.
There you go.
And so we disagree. But in all reality, like, people disagree on things, but people will throw out that rhino terminology, and it basically is, for those on the right, is the same as those on the left that call somebody a Nazi.
Right.
When they say you're a Nazi, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, it doesn't mean you're a National Socialist. No. It means you disagree with them.
Exactly.
You could be not talking about anything related to that, and they call you a Nazi, or they call you a racist.
Right.
It could be nothing regarding race, and they'll call you a racist.
Exactly.
Because you disagree with them on something. Well, the same thing, unfortunately, with some people on the right, even within the party, who will call you a rhino just because you disagreed with them. And part of it is not understanding populism versus conservatism.
Right.
Conservatism based on principles, and populism is more based on emotions.
Right.
And so even if you and I agree, I think you're a Steelers fan, right? Or no, sorry.
Saints.
Saints, yeah.
That's right.
You're a Saints. I knew it was one of the bad teams. But so you're a Saints fan, okay?
Right.
I'm not a Saints fan, but even if I was, right? If I wasn't even if we were both Saints fans and we were going to watch the game together, together, right? But I wasn't going to get all decked up in the colors like you were. I wasn't. I wasn't going to. Then
you're not as big a fan as I am.
Then I'm a rhino.
Where's your number one hand?
Because they would say that because I'm not as passionate about it. Even if I agree, even if I'm cheering for the same thing, even if I want our side to win, but I believe we should be focusing more on the run game and getting 4 yards at a time and not just throwing a Hail Mary every single pass.
That's my frustration with the Republican Party.
This isn't Tecmo Super Bowl where you're playing a video game and so you can just throw a pass every single time, or you can try to blitz every single time. This isn't a video game. You have to actually have strategy or strategery, as W would call it. Strategery. But you got to be able to think about that, and so if we can agree on major things, and with most of these people also, we're all believers, but so many of them are engaging in the name calling and divisive tactics of the enemy. But I remember a pastor that I heard one time, he said we should major on the majors and minor on the minors. Now he was talking about the Bible and those biblical principles, and we should focus on Jesus, on salvation, on those things first and foremost, and then we can disagree on the other things, like what color the church carpet should be, and those things. And the same thing in the party. Like there are major things that we absolutely agree upon, that is what makes us Republicans. And there are some people that fully disagree with everything that we agree with, and they still would say they're Republican, right? Okay, so that's one thing. But when we actually do agree on the majority of the things, we might just disagree on the tactic on how to get there, running the ball or passing the ball or whatever it is. Well, we can have those agreements without name calling, without throwing bombs, without tearing each other down, without saying, you know what, if they're going to run the ball and I'm out there, I'm going to go tackle them when they have the ball, even though they're on my team.
Right.
Like,
and that's exactly what happens. And I spoke recently at the Women's Club, and that was my thing about the Republican Party, is that we seem to be the party of Hail Marys. We're not satisfied with 3 yards or 4 yards down the field to work our way towards a touchdown. Instead, it's a Hail Mary every time, because we're all or nothing. It's got to be everything or nothing. And when it's all or nothing, we end up with nothing, and it ends up costing us more in the long run.
And at the same time, the left is using incrementalism to slowly pull, and they've accelerated it now, but slowly pull the country further and further
to
left.
The left,
because we haven't gotten everything that we've wanted, and so we haven't been able to just throw a Hail Mary and get a touchdown pass every time. And so, it's a sports analogy, and some people will say, well, that's not true, that's not relevant. But yes, just look at history.
Yeah.
And so I know there's people that say, well, yeah, but we got to be pure in our ideology and those things. Listen, I'm ranked the most conservative state senator in Oklahoma state history.
Exactly.
I'm the purest
you set the bar.
of the
That's
pure.
Right. That's right. You set the bar.
And I understand that. But even in the legislature, and again, I don't want to necessarily keep crossing paths with this, but so much of it is similar. There's been times where, yes, I've been pulling the furthest right on an issue, and someone else came along and they were able to get it 80% of the way there rather than the 100% that I was able to get. And guess what? I supported them in it. I was thankful that by me pulling that way and push and advocating for it, that I was able to help us get that direction, because that's what the left is doing. They're constantly pulling us their direction, and so it's a tug of war. There's a tug of war within the party of which direction we should go. I understand all that, but it doesn't help when we're trying to pull things back from the left, and we have people coming and cutting our legs out from under us because they say
we're constantly looking over our shoulder because somebody's trying to stab us in the back.
They say you're not doing it the right way.
Exactly.
You should be holding the rope with your left hand over your right.
Exactly.
And since you're not doing that, I'm going to come and stab you in the back.
Exactly.
So it's unfortunate that some of that is happening, but I continue to call for unity. I've continued to call and say, hey, let's follow the rules. Let's major on the majors, minor on the minors. What are the majors this year? Well, we have a presidential election.
That's exactly right.
We have a nominee, President Trump has received enough delegates that he is the nominee now. We're going to have our state convention and our district conventions where we're going to elect delegates, alternates, and electors. And that is what is required in the rules, is that we do those things. That is the majors. People want to do other things. I understand that. But those are the minors. We have to do what is required in the rules first, even if you think the other things are more important for you, because even if you're passionate about it. I understand the passion. I've talked about the people that are so passionate about their things. I'm not negating their passion, but the rules say that these are the things that we have to focus on and prioritize, because and everybody knows me that I'm not a big Fed guy, right? I believe that the states should have more power than the feds. I'm not just all or nothing, but I do believe, especially right now, that the presidency is vastly important. We have to win the presidency. I think
the last 3 years should show us exactly how important the presidency is and how important this race is. Here's the thing, Nathan. We have, like you say, a presidential race this year. Oklahoma's going to be fine. I'm not going to say that all 77 counties are going to go, because Oklahoma County and Tulsa County are turning more and more blue.
And we'll have to focus on them
each time that we do need to stay focused on them. But now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
It's okay. But one of the things I wanted to point out is the fact that we as chairman, me the chairman for Tulsa County and you for the state, we represent all Republicans.
Yes.
We don't just represent the Republicans that show up and participate in the party. We love those people, and we want more people to participate. But we represent everybody. In Tulsa County, there's almost 183,000 registered Republicans. In the state, there's almost 1.2 million registered Republicans. We don't just represent the 300 or 400 that show up at a county convention, or the 12 or 1,500 that show up at a state convention. We represent everybody. And so the point I was trying to make to a number of people is that if you don't have to change the mind of the party about the candidates or the elected officials, you have to change the minds of the voters. So our job is, the party's role, and I laid it out, is that we're to support Republican elected officials. We are to get Republicans elected to office.
Yes.
We are to promote the Republican brand and the Republican Party. We have great principles and values that we stand on,
that the majority of Oklahomans agree with.
That's right. We're to be a resource to voters and to candidates and to elected officials, and then to get out the vote. And that's it. We're not activists. We're not an activist organization. We do advocate for certain things like moving school board elections, or gun rights, whatever that may be. But we're not to put out scorecards. That's not our job. That's the jobs of organizations like OK2A, OKPAC, or the Constitutional Paper.
American Conservative Union, Freedom Works,
all of those people.
OCPA.
They're the ones that do that. That's not the party's responsibility. And so I think that people have a distorted view as to what we are supposed to be doing. And when that occurs, sometimes it makes it difficult for us to be able to do the job that we do. And so, can you speak a little bit on what you see the role of the party is?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that you've said, I agree with you on that. And I've tried to explain to people, because they're like, well, the party should be doing this. And, well, that's not in the rules. No. And that's not what we do at the national level. And there's some people that, I understand people hate the RNC, right? Okay, well, we have new leadership at the RNC.
Right.
You'll appreciate to hear that they just hired Scott Pressler.
I
don't know if you heard that.
I know, Scott. I caught all kinds of hell for having him come into Tulsa.
And now Laura Trump is the one that has said, yeah, she's going to hire him and bring him on. So
now
I'm sure all the people that were bashing you are now going to fully embrace that.
I bet if I open my email and my text messages, I have hundreds of I'm sorry's.
Yeah, but the RNC is the national party.
Right.
We as the state party are under them in certain ways. I mean, we operate under their umbrella, and then the same thing with the county parties.
Correct.
They operate under the state party. It's the OKGOP rules that we're all operating under, right? It's not the Tulsa County rules, which, you can do that for your county as long as they're not in violation with ours.
Right.
But you're operating under OKGOP rules, the state party rules, just as we are operating under the national party rules and so on. So there are different levels and layers of this. And so, yes, for the party, we have all those roles that you specified. As my job as chairman is to represent all 1.2 million registered Republicans.
Right.
And that's a broad view. Now, as a state senator, it's my job to represent my 80,000 constituents. And since I've been in the state Senate, what I will tell you is, for the most part, almost every state senator up there and every state representative represents their district.
Right.
They really do represent the views of their districts. Do I wish that their district was more conservative and held the strong conservative views that I do? Yes. My district does. You live in Broken Arrow.
That's exactly
Broken Arrow is far right. Okay.
We are the freest city in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And that's why I represent Broken Arrow, because of that. And with these other areas, do I wish that the legislators were more conservative? Yes. In some instances, are they less conservative than maybe the voting public? Yes. But in some ways, there are some that are more conservative than their district, right? So you have that balance overall, but the way you change that, like you said, is by talking to the electorate. Right. Because as you mentioned, I mean, we're going to have, 1,000 to 2,000 people at the state convention from across the state that are going to represent their views. Most House seats and Senate seats have more Republicans vote in those individual districts than are at the state attend the state convention. So all of those Republicans are voicing their opinion on who they think should go and represent them in a representative republic. Now, the thing that I will say, and I'll use another sports analogy, because people have said,
we understand sports.
When I got elected, people were like, well, Nathan Dahm has changed. No, I put on a different hat.
That's right.
And that's what they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And I use the example, I haven't asked his permission, but I use my brother as an example, right? His kids were playing soccer, right? His boys. And at first, he was just attending. And when his boys were out there playing, guess what? He was cheering them on.
That's right.
He was their biggest fan. That was his job. He was dad, right? Mm-hmm. On the sidelines as dad, cheering them on. Okay, as a state senator, my job is fight for all 80,000 of my constituents within the confines of the Constitution.
Right.
I have some constituents that want me to violate the Constitution, the Second Amendment. I'm not going to do that because the Constitution doesn't allow me to.
Right.
But, so that was his job, was to cheer them on. Well, he eventually became the coach of the team.
Right.
Well, now his job is to not just cheer on his boys. His job is to cheer on all of the boys on the team, and his job is to make sure that they all can play, to try to find their strengths from each of them, to help to coach them, to help to direct them in different ways. And if somebody were, in all honesty, to go to him and say, hey, you've changed, you're not cheering on your boys anymore like you used to, well, no, because I'm wearing the hat of a coach right now, like, for them to not be able to understand that. So the same thing, like, I still wear my state Senate hat when I need to, like this week, representing my constituents.
Exactly.
But at the same time, then I also have my OKGOP hat, chairman hat, that I will put on for all the Republicans that I work for and represent, and that's all of them across the state. And so when an elected Republican comes and says, hey, here's something that, that I want to do as an elected Republican, okay, then the party is your resource. For instance, we have a door knocking app that the state party's paying for that we offer to all candidates. And so there might be 3 or 4 Republicans running for the same House seat that they're all using that same app.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's because that's something that we offer for all of them.
That's right.
And that's my job as the chairman. And so some people might not agree with that. They might not like that. And if they were honest, they would have to say, well, you should be only supporting the people that we like. oh, so I should be picking winners and losers. Okay, what about if I'm not in that position and we have a different chairman that disagrees with you and is picking somebody else that you don't like? Then are you okay with that?
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't be okay with that. So they're just it's inconsistent. And anybody that has known me for a long time knows that I follow the rules, that I am consistent. If they're saying that I have changed or I'm being inconsistent, it's just because they
You're not
don't
responding the way that they want you to.
Yes, and they just don't understand the rules. They don't understand the process. They don't understand who I am. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new people that just don't understand. I'm glad they're involved.
I am too.
But they need to understand things.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation that's going on out in the public now.
And false information.
Exactly. Well, I was just being nice. But people need to be careful about who they seek their information from.
Mm-hmm.
There is, and I'm just going to kind of touch on it a little bit, but there's a group out there called OKGOP Action Team.
Mm-hmm.
People think that that's the OKGOP. Is it?
It is not. They are registered Republicans, I believe. I did hear that one of them, the leaders, had said that after this election cycle or something, that they were going to leave the party and I think register as an independent or whatever. But as far as I know, they're registered Republicans.
Right.
And guess what? Every registered Republican is a part of the OKGOP.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Whether they like it or not, or they're active or not within the party.
Yeah. Even if they only vote, once every 4 years for president, they are a part of the OKGOP because they're a registered Republican, because that's the requirement.
Right.
But no, they are not anything officially associated with the OKGOP. They've used that name to try to convince or mislead, however you want to say it. I don't know what their intentions are, but it has misled some people. But to try to convince people that they are officially a part of the party, but they're not any more than any other registered Republican. Right.
Now, initially, when you took office, I think that they were in the office quite a bit to help, supposedly, quote unquote, help you. And ultimately that kind of soured. And so when things didn't go their way, they picked up their toys or their volunteers and they went home. And I know that now we don't have the same amount of volunteers at the state party.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's more of it's kind of a pissing match trying to outdo you or whatever. Do you want to address any of the misinformation, the stuff that's going on, the confusion out there with what seems to be a shadow party within the party?
I wouldn't know where to begin. There's so much that has been going on. What I will say is that yes, I mean they had asked to be involved early on, and so I said yes. We'll do this for a short-term, temporary time period. We'll see how it goes. It didn't go as needed, and so I told the leader of that this doesn't seem to be working out, and so then after that he left, and nobody else. One guy did show up for a few more months, and then he ended up leaving. But pretty much everybody else just dropped off. Now I don't know if they were told not to come back in. I have heard from other people that they were told that I told them they can't come back in. That's not true, and it wouldn't surprise me that that was falsely attributed to me. But and so we do have other volunteers that are there in the party headquarters. Things are going to gear up as we're going into an election year.
Yeah.
So we welcome the volunteers if anybody does want to get involved. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there because again, people don't understand the role of the party. They want to take it and use it as their sledgehammer.
Right, as a weapon.
They want to
weaponize the party.
They do. They want to weaponize the party against who they perceive as their enemy, and for the most part, it's other Republicans.
Right.
And those who they brand as rhinos. And again, they call me a rhino, even though I'm ranked
me too.
I'm
Rhonda Rhino.
Well, I'm ranked the most conservative state senator in Oklahoma state history. Even by their metrics, I'm 25% more Republican than their next closest golden child senator. And so it's interesting to see the dynamics of the factions. And I mean, that's life. There's going to be factions. There's going to be cliques. I'll tell you, in the Senate, I haven't been involved in the factions or cliques. I do what I believe is right. Sometimes that means I'm working with some people, and on the very next bill, I'm working against them because the one bill they had was great, the next bill they had was bad, right? And so it's not based on personality, it's not based on factions, it's based on principles for me. And I have continued to call for unity, for following the rules. I put out a video, I think a couple of weeks ago now,
and it was around
an email on that.
Time. We played it at the convention.
And I immediately got a response from one of the leaders of this group, and the opening line said, "Your calls for unity and following the rules make me cringe." I think that following the rules and having unity is a Republican principle. I think it's a godly principle. I think it's an Oklahoma value. But apparently, this leader of this of this shadow group or whatever doesn't believe that that's something we should be focusing on. You know what? We live in a free country. They're entitled to their opinion, but I disagree. I think that following the rules is one of the core principles of a republic. Having the law, following the rule of law.
That's right.
And that is what a republic is. That's why we are the Republican Party. And so I'm going to continue to focus on that, even with the personal attacks, even with the shadow factions. Whatever comes my way, I'm going to continue to do what's right.
Yeah, I just kind of embrace it. I embrace, the whole rhino thing. It just, I find it humorous because I was lobbying up at the Capitol a few weeks ago, and I ran into two different people that you and I have both been associated with for 10 or 15 years. And each person on separate occasions said, "What the hell is going on?" Said, when they start calling Nathan Dahm and Rhonda Villamont Smith rhinos, I know the world has gone mad, because these people that are in here that are new, they have no idea of the battles that we fought over the past 15 years, the things that we've done where we've put our name on the line, or and
they don't have any historical
and not
context.
That we did it for any recognition, but it's like, you're picking the wrong enemy. I am not your enemy. I am your friend, because I will work with you to make sure that whatever you're wanting to do, that you're as successful as you can possibly be. And that's, because that's part of my role. But, it's funny. So I embrace it. I have a rhino on my desk. I have, the rhino showed up at convention, but it's like, you're not going to call me anything. It's like the video that was made about me and that went out. And it's like, I've had 7 kids. I've got 23 grandchildren. This stuff does not bother me. I have the skin of a rhino. I just want you to know. So
well, and I mean, it gets down to name calling. It gets down to emotion. It gets down to, and again, the Republicans are the party of logic and of reason.
We should be.
We should be. Now we have to reach people through that only operate through emotion that way. And that's the left generally used to only be they operate through emotion. But so many of these other people,
it's hard to tell the left from the right anymore.
Well, they're using a lot of leftist tactics.
They are.
Because they're so emotionally driven. It's not factually driven, because they've proven that, because they are providing all kinds of falsehoods, knowingly false things that they are continuing to perpetuate because it feels right to them. Okay, well, I mean, that's like the left saying that, that they identify as a male because it feels right, or the left. I'm sorry, but facts don't care about your feelings. I appreciate Ben Shapiro saying that for so long.
That's right.
We should be focusing on the facts, but with so many of these people, they're so emotionally driven, so they don't know the history of what you've done, of what I've done. What they know are the lies that stir up their emotions. So it seems true to them. So that's going to just further stir up their emotions. And if they would just calm down, if they would just take a logical look at it, if they would reach out and ask, then we could provide the context, provide the truth, provide the answer to them. And if they were logical, then they would accept that. But they don't want that. What they want, for the most part with these people, is they want to be upset. And they want everybody else to know they're upset, and they want everybody else to be upset with them. And if you are not the adequate level of upset, you're a rhino. Doesn't matter what you've done. Doesn't matter if you passed legislation that stopped abortion before Roe v. Wade was overturned, like I did.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you are the reason that constitutional carry, not the only reason. And I'm not taking sole credit for either of these things.
I know that, but you were the catalyst. You've carried that.
So many of these battles
Yep.
that they aren't aware of because they've just gotten involved, and this stuff happened 2, 3, 4 years ago. Not even, I mean, that's still recent memory. That's not like it's that long ago, right? And so they just don't have that historical knowledge, and knowledge is powerful. And so, yeah, in some of these ways, they just need to be informed. But I'm going to continue to focus on following the rules. I'll continue to inform people and answer questions when necessary. But I'm also not going to let them distract to where all my time is spent chasing down and correcting every rumor and every lie that they spread and do those things. That's not my job. It doesn't matter to me what people say about me. Yeah. Like you said, I've heard it from House members, senators, reporters, lobbyists at the Capitol building. If Nathan Dahm is a rhino, what chance do any of the rest of us stand?
Exactly.
Like there's no possible way. If the most conservative state senator in Oklahoma state history is a rhino, isn't a true Republican, then nobody can be.
No.
And so it's that perfectionist idea that they have that, well, if Nathan Dahm would just stand up and scream and yell on the things that we want him to when we want him to.
When we want him to. That's
then,
right.
Then that would be okay.
Well, we're gonna transition here in just a second, but real quick, one of the things that the thought that had slipped my mind was the fact that we do have a presidential election coming up. Oklahoma, I think, is going to be pretty safe when it comes to winning it for Trump.
Oh, sure.
We will have opportunity to go and help in other states that need help. We've got to get our act together and have things start, have people start working together, because we have got to, Oklahoma's okay. I mean, and I don't mean that like the whole thing.
But it works.
Colorado or Arizona or Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, there's going to be opportunities for us to go other places to help. And so I just want people to think about the bigger picture, that our number one thing this year is getting President Trump elected and put back into the White House, and that all this other stuff is petty, and we just need to put it aside. And so I think you're doing a great job as chairman, and I am so glad to serve as a county chair under your leadership. And
I appreciate all that you've done for the party. You've been so involved for so long, and I really appreciate what you're doing too.
I enjoy it. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about Senate stuff. Hey, welcome back to Real Talk with Rhonda. We're here with my state senator, Nathan Dahm. He's also the OKGOP state chairman. And we've just got through talking about, party stuff with the Republican Party, and I want to move on to Senate, because this is your last year.
It is.
And I'm sorry to hear that. I really am.
I'm getting released from my 12-year sentence.
So thinking back or looking back, because I remember, the picture made the newspaper when I hugged you the day that you were sworn into office. What were some
and
of
the Tulsa world has never covered us since.
I know. It's never positive. So what were some of the misconceptions maybe that you had going in as a newly elected state senator?
I don't know if it would be a misconception, but I am still shocked at how few people actually read the bill, especially their own bill. I guess that's the big one. I guess I kind of knew that people didn't actually read the bills, but to not read your own bill because a lobbyist just says, "Hey, will you do this? Will you carry this?"
Yeah.
And then, when I start asking questions, they have no idea that was in the bill. I guess one big one that stands out to me was one time when they were moving the Scenic Rivers Commission over to the Grand River Dam Authority, so they would have control of the rivers over in the eastern part of the state, right. Tahlequah and everything, and that was what the bill was presented as. This is just moving it over there. There's no new changes or anything. And I remember finding in there, and so I asked, well, what about the provision that bans styrofoam? And they're like, well, there's no provision that bans styrofoam. And I'm like, okay, let's look at this page, this line. And here it is, it bans styrofoam. And it was like a $5,000 fine. And it wasn't just like if you left styrofoam trash on it. It was like if you had a styrofoam cooler, with drinks, you would be guilty of this fine. And the Senate author had no idea that that part of the legislation was in there. So some things like that. I mean, that was kind of shocking for me. So I don't know if that was a misconception or not, but I just, and still happens to this day. So there's still things that surprise me being up there, but not as much as originally with it, how much people rely on lobbyists.
Yes.
I knew that was going to be the case, but I'm surprised at how much people rely on the bureaucrats. Mm-hmm. I mean, the majority of the bills that are carried up there are a request for either a lobbyist or a bureaucrat, usually a bureaucrat, and they proudly say it. Like when I first went up there, it was kind of a little bit more of, you didn't want to answer that. Oh yeah, I'm carrying a bunch of legislation for this agency to grow their agency, to give them more power. To we're supposed to be up there representing the people, not just the governmental agencies for that. And so that still kind of surprised me how many people just blindly carry agency legislation thinking that that's overall a positive thing. And there is some good legislation that can come out from that, but it's not really usually protecting people's rights, which should be our main focus.
Right. Well, I remember, the first year, remember they made fun of you because for those that don't know, you're the senator that reads every bill, and you'll stay up all night reading bills. In fact, if I recall correctly, you've even had Democrats that have pulled their bill to do some work on it because after you've read it and pointed out where there were problems, they went in and corrected it before it was considered.
On both sides, yeah. I mean, I've brought stuff up in committee or on the floor, errors that I found. I've also found all kinds of Scrivener's errors, just different things, like just on a bill that I was reading a week or so ago, instead of within, it said within because it had a G on the end. I'm like, that's not how you spell that, guys. And everybody makes mistakes or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, there's been other major things that I've discovered and that I've been able to stop. Like one that I bring up that I mentioned, and again, the senator didn't know that this was in the bill. It was presented as this would say that if you have bomb-making materials, if you're building a bomb, then you're guilty of a felony. That's how it was presented. If you're building a bomb, then this is a felony. Well, I read the bill, and that's not what the bill said. It said the bill said if you had bomb-making materials, you could be charged with a felony. That was the new language. So I read through the rest. Difference. I read through the bill though, and in the existing law, I found that the definition of bomb-making materials was any flammable substance and an ignition source.
Okay.
So
your lighter and charcoal fluid.
A lighter and your can of gas for your lawnmower, you have bomb-making materials. Well, could you be charged with that? Well, yeah, because a lot of times the DAs, we've seen this happen across the country, and even here in Oklahoma, they'll charge you with the maximum sentence that they can. Yeah. So if they can charge you with bomb-making material on a felony to get you to plead down to something else, they'll take it because that's a win for them.
Right.
And so I brought that up on the floor, and the senator he later said this is the bill that blew up in his face because he didn't know that was in there. But I was able to stop that bill because I read the bill, I knew what was in it, and I knew the long-term possible problems that it could create. So I do wish that more people would read the bills. I did read a bunch of the bills yesterday.
I heard. Tell us about that. I heard you.
I read those on the Senate floor, and apparently that is a terroristic action.
That's what I've heard
by some Senate leadership members. They apparently actually reading the bill out loud and following the rules.
Yeah.
Everything I did was permissible within the rules. They even admitted that right after saying it was terroristic action. So, yeah, I'm fighting for my constituents. That's my job as a state senator. I'm their voice in the state Senate, and even some of the things that I was fighting for and different things. I think that it is unacceptable that Democrats get more bills heard than conservative Republicans because they are conservative Republicans. And so, okay, now I have my state senator hat on where I'm fighting for my constituents. Some people say, well, what about as state party chairman? as state party chairman, we have a wide range of
That's
Republicans. Right. Some of them are more moderate, and so that's leadership, and we could talk about that. But as a state senator, yes, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight the battles for my constituents on the things that I believe in, that I believe are most important to them.
Yeah.
And I've been able to, because I've done that, I've been able to accomplish pretty much everything that I ran on those 12 years ago.
Yeah.
The only thing that I haven't accomplished was full elimination of the income tax.
Well.
Now, I did say I support eliminating it, and I have voted on every measure to lower the income tax, which we've done since I've been in there, so I can say that I've helped to lower the income tax.
Exactly.
I'm not done fighting for it. There are proposals out there that hopefully we can get done this year that would do a staggered elimination of it, which is what it would take anyways. I knew we were never just going to fully eliminate it right out the gate, because it is a huge source of the revenue for the state. But that's the only thing that I wasn't able to fully accomplish and realize in my 12 years there. But everything else that I campaigned on, I've been able to see and help make those changes to get those things accomplished.
So back in, and I know we're getting short on time, but back in 2018, there was the big purge. Remember the purge?
Yeah.
And that came after the largest tax increase in Oklahoma history, and you were punished for refusing to vote for a tax increase. You had your committees stripped away from you. Is that correct? Your leadership.
Yeah, I was at that point in time, I was still in elected leadership because the position was elected. They ended up changing it after that and making all those positions appointed so that I couldn't run for it. Because I do have the respect of many of my colleagues, even if they get upset at me on occasion. They know that I know the rules. They know that I know the bills. There is a level of respect, even if there's disagreement.
Exactly.
Right? And so, and as I was one of 4 whips, and I was one of our most effective whips, and they understood that and they appreciated that, and they're like, okay, well, in this role, Dahm is very effective. He communicates the information that we need in a quick and timely manner, and that's the job. And so they were willing to vote for me. But then once it became an appointed thing, yes, they removed all those things. But and now they might say, oh no, that's not why I was punished. But in a press conference, Greg Treat said that voting against revenue measures must be punished.
Yeah.
So voting against tax increases must be punished. I disagree with him on that. I stood strong. I never voted for a tax increase. I never will, because we don't need the money, and it's been proven out now that we didn't need the money. When we talk about all these record revenues that are coming in now, those record revenues are far above and beyond what the tax increase amount was.
Right.
So if we didn't have those tax increases, we would still have extra revenue, not to the same level or to the same degree. We'd still have plenty to put in savings. We'd still have plenty to lower taxes. We wouldn't have enough to grow government, which would have been a great thing. But so I stand strong by what I did by voting against those tax increases, even though I was punished. But again, when those types of actions happen, they're not actually punishing me. They're trying to punish my constituents.
Yes.
And same thing when they don't hear the bills. When they hear Democrat bills but don't hear Republican bills, they're saying that they're incentivizing those Democrats and having those Democrat policies. So that's obviously a challenge in the legislature. That comes down to leadership in different ways, and leadership style, whatever you want to call it. But I've continued to stay consistent and stand for my people.
Considering the attitude towards you at times, you've gotten amazing things done. Whether it had your name on it or you were the kind of I call it the woman behind the man.
I've transferred so many bills to other people. Yeah, I don't care who's. Right. And I've said that publicly and in meetings. And in fact, just this week there was a bill that I had. They said the only way they were going to hear it is if I transferred it, and I'm like, okay, transfer it. I don't care whose name on it is on it. I care about the policy. I care about advancing protections for the people of Oklahoma. Exactly. It doesn't have to have my name on it.
So yesterday, and this isn't the Senate, this is the House, and I'm very frustrated with the House right now because they refused to hear Chris Banning's bill to move school board elections from February and April to a general election. And it's frustrating when leadership can keep can keep these things, from being heard, and let it get through and let everybody think everything's going okay, and then, pull the rug right out from under your feet. They know that this polls very well. Mm-hmm. They know that that the citizens want it, but for some reason or another, they just didn't want his bill, and now we're going to be working on the one, I guess, that Ali Seaford got through last year.
So still over on the House side, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frustrating when people use the roles in leadership, not for what the best interest is, but because they fear losing an election.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, and you've heard me use this quote forever. I mean, since we've known each other. It's not my quote. It was from a pastor after the Civil War era, and I don't even remember his name anymore. But the quote he said is, "There's a difference between," and I paraphrase it. "There's a difference between a politician and a statesman. A politician is looking out for their next election. A statesman is looking out for the next generation."
Right.
Now, I'm not going to be so presumptive to call myself a statesman, but that's been my philosophy, is to look out for the next generation, not for my next election. And everybody will tell you that. Like, people would come to me and be like, "Man, you got an election. You can't vote yes on this or no on this." And I'm like, watch me.
Yeah.
This if we can get this passed and it costs me my seat, I'm fine with that. I'm going to stand up because this is something that benefits the next generation.
Right.
So I'll absolutely take that stand every single time, which is what I've done. But you're right. For a lot of people in the legislature, a lot of elected officials, they're always thinking about the next election,
right?
Not the next generation, not necessarily what's best for their constituents, but the next election. And so for a lot of them, that means, okay, where will the lobbyist money be on this one?
Right. Exactly.
Or this or that. Unfortunately, that's part of the political process. If people get more engaged, then the people can have more of a voice.
Right.
And that can happen, whether as a Republican or through activist organizations. Those activist organizations that you mentioned, they've been able to get stuff passed
they have, yes.
and heard and different things. And so there's different roles for different things,
right.
And people need to understand the roles and get involved in those roles, whatever they're passionate about,
right.
And but use that passion in the correct role. That's what I would say.
I agree 100%. So just last question, and then we'll wrap it. What next? You term out at the end of May. Well, I guess probably November, because in case there's special sessions. But you term out, and you still will be the party chair for another year, a little more than a year. But what's your goal behind there after that?
Well, state party chair is a voluntary position. I'm not paid for that, and I have a wife and daughter to take care of. So, but a lot of people have asked me that, and I'm not trying to dodge it, not trying to get a political answer, but my answer is the same as with everything else. My wife and I are praying about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we stepped into the chairman's role after praying about it. Every campaign I've ran for was after much prayer. Not saying that I'm human, I can miss it or whatever on anything, but that's how my wife and I consider things, is through prayerful consideration. So we are praying about next steps. There is one or two things that we're kind of looking at right now that could possibly be a possibility. But as of right now, we don't have direction from the Lord on that.
So you'll be between opportunities, is what it is.
So I'm doing my job as a state senator. I'm doing my job as state party chairman. Once May comes around and we're out of session, I'll have a little bit more time. And I will say this: as we've prayed about it, we believe God has showed us that He does have something prepared for us in the right time, the right appointment to the right, in the right position and the right timing and everything.
Right.
So we're not worried about it. We're trusting the Lord. We're doing what we believe we need to do, and we know God's going to take care of us. He's our source. So we're excited for whatever it is. We hope He shows it to us soon.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we'll just step into that whenever He leads us.
It'll always be in His perfect timing. You know that, because
Absolutely.
when we try to make it happen, we sure screw it up big time, don't we?
Well, and I will say, I still do believe it'll be something related to government. That's what I feel called to do.
You do. You do it very well.
Well,
so.
I believe that I was created for that purpose, and so I'm going to keep staying in that as long as God leads me that. But if He tells us to go back on the mission field, if He tells us, to go into business and be able to support, the mission field, to support the church, to support the party or whatever, be a support that way, wherever He leads, we'll follow.
Good. Well, Thank you so much, Nathan, for coming in.
Thank you.
And taking time out of your busy day. I think it's important that we go directly to the source when questioning issues of concern. And people take advantage of the fact that the average citizen will fall for stories because it's easier to believe a lie than it is to go in search of the truth. So thank you for listening to Real Talk with Rhonda, where we connect you with the listener to the people that know about the issues that matter.